These are Clark slots.
Good morning. So I'm happy so many people are interested in the Medicine Buddha practice. How many people here have received the Medicine Buddha, either the transmission or the long? Okay. And then how many people here have not received the transmission? Okay, so I need to give the long. So, and how many people here are not so familiar with the Medicine Buddha that have heard of this concept of this healing Buddha? Okay. So let me give a little background of the Medicine Buddha and the benefits of this practice. So within Tibetan Buddhism, there is the understanding that we're all intrinsically pure, we're all intrinsically enlightened, but due to sort of our habitual tendencies and our ways of moving about the world and getting distracted by form, feelings, perceptions, cognitive formations, and then all that comes with that, we tend to get a little bit confused. And so because of that, we sort of have to recover our intrinsic nature, which is sometimes called Buddha nature, or the enlightened mind. So the concept is very different in that we're already perfectly pure and enlightened, and we just have to remember it, or we just have to recover it. So in order to do that, there are many, many different practices that one can do. So this particular practice comes from a larger text by a tertin. A tertin means a treasure revealer. So someone who revealed something through pure vision of meditation, or else they had, like, sometimes a dakini can bring a text to someone, and sometimes people can travel through meditation to pure realms and then receive teachings and then write those down. So all of those are called terma. So this is a particular terma that was written by a man named Mingyur Dorje. This is what we're going to be practicing, and then also again on a Medicine Buddha Day in March. And this was originally composed by a person named Karma Chakme Rinpoche. So this particular Rinpoche that composed the larger text was well known in both the Nyingma lineage and the Kagyu lineage. So just like, for those of you that are less familiar with Buddhism, just like there's like Protestant and Catholic and agnostic and different sects, right? We have this within Buddhism as well. So the Nyingma is considered one of the oldest religions, and then the Kagyus and the Nyingmas are pretty much married to each other. So they have a lot of similarities, and they share this particular Medicine Buddha practice. So this Medicine Buddha practice comes originally from a tertin, Mingyur Dorje, and then this was condensed, okay, by Karma Chakme. So the benefits of doing Medicine Buddha practice are really kind of twofold. You know, the idea is that you see many different emanations of Buddhas. So some Buddhas are just like Shakyamuni, the original Buddha, who was enlightened, who was a man. And then you'll see all these other different forms of Buddhas. And that just reflects how we have many different sort of mind streams within ourselves as well. So sometimes you can have a particular deity that helps to wake up that intrinsic enlightenment within you. And so for some people that's Medicine Buddha, for some people it's Green Tara, for some people it's Avalokiteshvara, which is the actual living emanation, is His Holiness the Dalai Lama. So there's all these different Buddhas, but they're really the same. And so they're really reflecting this inner nature of the Buddha. They're reflecting this inner basic goodness, or this basic Buddha wisdom that resides within everyone. And so we look at the outer Minla, which is, the medicine Buddha here. And the outer Minla is visualized outside. Now, because this is a Nyingma practice, this can be generated where when we're imagining and we're doing a medicine Buddha practice, we're doing internal visualization of our own body being perfect and pure, but we're also simultaneously doing an outer generation where we're imagining a Buddha in front of us. So either one is fine, and they can be done simultaneously. If you're new to this practice, I suggest that you choose one and work on that one until it's very solid and stable. And then you can work on being more fluid with self-generation, turning yourself into the Buddha. And I always like to tell the story of how for many, many years when I did this practice, and as a Tibetan physician, I felt very uneasy about doing full generation for my own self. And I felt uneasy because I felt like, oh, I'm just a regular, ordinary human. Like, how can I possibly transform myself into the medicine Buddha? How can I be pure? And so on. And I had a very sort of strict Rinpoche, who's the 5th incarnation of the same doctor. And he gave me my original medicine Buddha empowerment. And he said, well, you're a doctor. That's it. You just do it. Otherwise, you're not a doctor. So he was just very precise about it. But what I came to realize is that you have this idea of this Buddha nature within you, and then once you become a little bit more accustomed and familiar and stop beating yourself up so much all the time, as we humans really love to do, then you can actually tap into your intrinsic goodness, and it becomes a little bit easier. So if you're working with this practice and you find it really hard to generate yourself as the medicine Buddha, just remember that you have that intrinsic nature within you. So this particular sadhana, a sadhana means this particular text within Tibetan Buddhism, is helpful for developing your inner Minla. So developing that inner sort of wisdom, Buddha nature that you have. So in this way, there's different practices that can help to develop this. So for example, like the 7-line prayer or the 7-line branch offering prayers is known to help you develop your inner medicine Buddha. And then we get distracted by our external world, so that can be a little bit harder. And by making these offerings, then we can also help to decline with our own grasping and our own sort of, desire. Leela, I have a spot for you. So the sadhana itself also, like when we prostrate to the Buddha, we can also reduce our own pride. So prostrations that people find within like a particular Buddhist practice called nundro, or preliminaries, is helpful to help sort of eliminate your pride. And that's because you're literally hitting the floor all the time. You're sort of working with your own pride. But when doing that, you're helping to develop some compassion. So this particular practice is sort of the ultimate in developing compassion, because whether you're working to heal yourself or whether you're working to heal other people, you have to have infinite, unending compassion. So this is really helpful for people that are in a healing profession so that they don't get sort of compassion fatigue or compassion burnout, doctor burnout. So it's a real problem. And so by reciting this mantra, you can develop some inner strength. So if you're working in a healing profession and you need to sort of rely on having this unending compassion forever and ever, then having this mantra is really helpful to just sort of help develop your inner strength. So when we think about a deity, we think about them intrinsically pure, and that they're actually representing something that's already inside us. So in Buddhism, there are sort of 3 wheels. There's the Hinayana, the Mahayana, and the Vajrayana. So a lot of times people sort of have a misconcept thinking that the Hinayana means like a lower vehicle, And I've talked a lot about this, that it's not necessarily so, that it means that there's some renunciation. And then for the Mahayana, this is helpful for developing compassion. This is where we're actually turning towards wanting to have all beings to be free, not just our own suffering, but all beings to be free. And in the Vajrayana, or the greater wheel, this doesn't mean that it's better, because if you don't have, renunciation and compassion, then you can't actually develop the pure vision that is the Vajrayana. So this practice is also perfect because it helps you develop all of these things. It helps you renunciate, it helps you develop compassion, and then it leads to pure vision, where you're actually able to transform yourself into the Medicine Buddha as a pure being, and that you can service and help other people. So I've seen miraculous things with the Medicine Buddha practice, absolutely miraculous things that are unexplainable. And I've seen this with my teachers. I've seen this myself in my own practice. And so the result of this practice really is developing true loving kindness and not wanting to cause harm. So the Medicine Buddha, again, is this reflection of ourself. So we're cultivating this. And in his right hand, you see he's holding the Arura plant. So this is the most precious plant in all of Tibetan medicine. And it's so precious because it actually has the characteristics to end all disease. So it does that because it has the powers of all 6 tastes. So the Arura plant is very special within Tibetan medicine. And this is also representing relative truth. So this is relative suffering. So we can work with our relative suffering, and we can work with our ultimate suffering. So our relative suffering is like, we have a cold, we have a flu, we have MS, we have diabetes, we have whatever we have, right? And then, we can work on that relative level. But we can also work on this ultimate level where we're working to achieve our own enlightenment, where we're actually working to release this attachment to this particular house that we happen to be in, and that we can work with others on that same level. And so this is where the fields get a little more transparent, and that's where some of the little woo-woo magical stuff can happen. And this left hand that he has holding the vase, this is representing meditative stability. So we need to develop that stability so that we can transform ourselves into this perfectly pure being, so that we can help ourselves and help others. So again, this has to happen with a lot of non-judgment. And if you've come to any of my other teachings, you know that I'm constantly saying shamatha, 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 calm abiding meditation. And that's because you're learning how to stabilize the mind. You're learning how to place the mind. And that's essential when you're moving on to doing something such as this, which is deity practice. Because within Tibetan medicine, we say that when we're visualizing and we're trying to sort of conjure up that pure vision, the problem that can arise is that this can increase our lung, or our wind nature. And so the wind is kind of, remember from my talk last time, the wind is the thing that's the little troublemaker that goes, eat the chocolate, stay up late, have the bad relationship, whatever it is, stay in the job you hate, whatever it is. It's the wind that makes us feel uneasy and insecure. And when we're concentrating really hard to develop a vision of a deity, no matter what deity that is, you can increase your lung, you increase your wind. So if you don't have that stable mind of meditation that his left hand represents holding this begging bowl, things can get a little wild pretty quick. So you really want to simultaneously, when you work with this practice, I find that for beginners especially, it's really important that you just keep it really light. So if that means that you just imagine this blue blob in front of you as a person that's emanating this blue light in all 10 directions, that's totally fine. You're not doing something wrong. Okay, what you're doing is you're tapping into that intrinsic energy, and then you're developing some stability for it. So for those of you that are new to this, just know that as we do that. So I will give the reading transmission of this practice. It begins by sort of talking about the benefits. So the reading transmission, we just don't imagine that it's I'm me. Imagine that I'm either the Medicine Buddha or that I'm any of my gurus or my teachers. I've received the Medicine Buddha from wonderful, amazing masters such as Trungpa Rinpoche, His Holiness the 17th Karmapa, Namkhai Norbu Rinpoche, Anyan Rinpoche, Palchu Rinpoche, Trushik Rinpoche. So when you've received that, you actually have that lineage and blessing. So it's not me giving you this transmission. This is something I'm always a little bit hesitant to do because I'm not monastic, but I have been given permission to do so. But just imagine that I am embodying the Medicine Buddha, and that the words that you're hearing is then coming into you from my pure